Becoming a parent changes everything. Your body, your mind, your relationships, your identity. I'm Katie, a mum of 3 boys and your host of By Your Side. Each week, I'll bring you honest conversations with trusted experts and real parents. No fluff, no shame, just the science and stories that help you feel seen, supported, and confident in your choices. Whether you're newly pregnant or knee-deep in toddler chaos, we'll explore everything from mental health and sleep to identity, guilt, and what it really means to raise a child today. Hit follow now. Join us for new episodes every week. We're right here, by your side. Our guest on this week's By Your Side podcast is Dr. Cornelia Ochola. She is a Kenyan paediatrician with over 15 years experience in maternal, newborn and child health. She has led national and regional programs focused on child health, immunisation, early childhood development, and is the child health and nutrition team lead at USAID Kenya. She is a very clever lady who has an amazing way of making the science and the research accessible for everybody, even me. What I loved about this talk with her is about 5 key things that any caregiver can do for their child. And by caregiver, that could be a mum, it could be a partner, it could be anybody that is responsible for looking after a baby. And I just love the way that Dr. Cornelia makes everything that could be complex really simple. I hope you enjoy our talk too. So I am incredibly excited because we've got this week on our podcast, Dr. Cornelia. And the reason I reached out to you is because I saw your post, and it's just a really moving post about how a particular story changed your life forever. And I think I love the way that you're kind of smiling at that point. I'd really love if you could talk to that very heart-moving story about what actually changed the trajectory of your life and led to what you do now.
Sure. Thanks. Just starting by saying thank you, Katie, for welcoming me to your podcast. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. Yes, Dr. Cornelia Ochola. I have been working in the pediatrics and child health space to close to 15 years now. I've worked in both clinical and also the public health space. And really referring to the story you're talking about, I'm from Kenya. And in Kenya, I've worked in both private health facilities and public health facilities. And I remember vividly this one time when I was in one of the health facilities in a rural area, and we were having a newborn who developed some complications at the time of delivery. On this particular point, when we needed to refer the baby to a higher level facility, we were able to stabilize, but we're not able to give all the care that the baby needed to be survive, and hence the reason for referral. And at that particular point, the caregivers didn't have the money, so we had to come together, the healthcare providers, and come up with some money for at least to pay for the ambulance to get to the health facility we're referring them to. And just because we're not able to provide all the comprehensive care that they needed, even though we were able to get the ambulance to transfer the baby, when we followed up the next day, we were informed that the baby had passed on. This was about, the referral facility was about 50 kilometers away, thereabout.
Okay.
And based on that, we realized, you may have your stethoscopes, but if certain systems are not in place, clinical alone does not work together. We need to work together as a system, really ensuring systems are in place in terms of leadership, in terms of financing for the healthcare system, in terms of capacity of the healthcare workers within the healthcare system, in terms of commodities, meaning the medicines, the equipment that is required to take care of these babies, and also just following them up. So coming that system together. And that also brings in the multi-sectoral approach, meaning is nutrition in place, water and sanitation, education. So different aspects. And so based on that, I began my new adventure also in the public health space, just to learn more about the systems and see my place on how I can work together with the rest of the team, really to improve systems of healthcare. So yeah, that was my simple.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love the way that you term it your new adventure. But what's really interesting is around that concept of systems, because I think no matter where you go in the world, I think where pregnant women are let down is because those systems aren't working. really effective around them, or there might be something missing. And it's so inspiring. You have now made your career in terms of championing, improving those systems. And I know you're kind of doing that on an international basis, which is just totally inspiring. I think, well, one of the reasons why I wanted to particularly pick your brains today as kind of that somebody who has that such wide reaching understanding about systems and evidence and research was about that there's a term that you used in one of your posts that I saw about responsive caregiving. Now, what is responsive caregiving? Because it's a term that as a professional you might use, but actually as a parent, if somebody said you're showing responsive caregiving or you're not, what does that actually mean?
Thanks for that question. And I think it would be good first just to go back to where responsive caregiving emanates from, really the nurturing care framework. So in nurturing care, we have ensuring the child has good health, for a child to really grow and nurture well. Good health, that they are safe, and they have adequate nutrition, they are learning, have opportunities for early learning, and also responsive caregiving. When they have these five, they're able to grow well and really just be at their optimal, even as they continue to grow and be adults who are able to give back to the society because they've been able to grow and develop well. And so really responsive caregiving, as you've asked, is more about a parent or caregiver's ability to be able to notice, understand, and respond to a child's signals appropriately and at the right time. There's nothing fancy, just being able to, as I said, notice, understand. So understand the cues that the child is giving and respond to these signals in an appropriate way and at the right time.
Oh, okay. So there's a couple of bits I want to circle back to there. So you gave 5 in terms of things. So I'm going to test myself, and I probably won't get them right, Dr. Cornelia. So one is about being safe. So making sure that your child is safe. And, that can be in the wider sense of where you are. And that's not always possible for every family and what they're going through, dependent on where their environment and what's happening in their wider environment. But there's elements around kind of making sure that your child's sleeping safe and that they have a safe caregiver with them. The other one was about health. So healthy, so that's good nutrition. And I know you do a lot around breastfeeding, and I know that's a choice. But we know the evidence around that. If you can and be supported too, that's one of the best starts that you can give for your baby. I knew this would be a test. Oh, what else? What have I forgotten, Dr. Cornelia? Obviously, we'll come back to the responsive caregiving, but what were the other 2?
So we talked about good health, safety. And there's also opportunities of early learning and nutrition on its own.
Okay, so the early learning bit with, if you have a teeny tiny baby and you've just given birth, what does that look like? Because my mind instantly jumps to having maybe a toddler with play bricks or playing with stones. But what does early learning mean for that very, very tiny baby?
So actually, learning begins even when the baby's in the womb.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Conception, as soon as babies begin to acquire skills socially. So that's why you hear caregivers are being told, or parents being told, speak to the baby when they're in the womb. They can hear you. When they're in the womb, they can hear you. But now, as you've asked, for a newborn baby, there are quite a number of opportunities to learn. So, for example, when a baby is suckling or breastfeeding, or even if they're being given milk by a bottle, just being able to gaze into the baby's eyes, to speak to the baby, to sing up to the baby, they're able to learn in that they're able to understand language, social development. When they're able to see, normally when a baby is born, they can see the mother's face and up to about 90 degrees. So just being able to, as they stare, they're able to at least picture this is mom's face, and they're already learning to connect and see that contact, having the smile. Normally by 6 weeks, a baby has begun to smile. As the baby smiles and the caregiver, whether it's a mother or the father, smiles back at the baby. Again, it's still another way of social interaction, and the baby learns how to develop relationships with other people. So really, even at that particular point, there's a form of learning that the baby is able to get.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's very easy to think of early learning as when they go to preschool or school or learning, a skill. Whereas actually what you're saying is those skills are that social connection, it's really interesting. The focus, I think I heard that a baby's focus is actually the distance between kind of nipple to face if you're holding and feeding a baby. But also, I suppose it's that just that element of talking, singing. I mean, I read I put books in front of my children, my boys, when they were teeny, I think less than 6 weeks. And I remember family and friends just laughing at me, thinking I was really silly doing that. But kind of what you're saying is sharing that language, sharing is actually really important for that learning that you can be part of as a parent.
Absolutely. It's really, really important because it brings in the different cues, even the time of breastfeeding, talking to them, as you've mentioned, singing to them, when it's playing, because even at that age, one can play with the baby.
Yeah.
Just during diaper change, playing, being able to move the baby's feet and able to see, these are your hands, your feet, playing with them, as changing that diaper at that age. All those helps with social interaction and really brain development. As probably I didn't mention this, but in the first 2 years of life, almost 80% of brain connections, so the nerves in the brain, the connections are happening. So a lot of learning.
Whoa. So we'll go back to 80% of your brain as a human is formed in those first 2 years.
Yeah. And so we call it the first 1,000 days of life. That is from the time of a conception all the way to 2 years. And so at that particular point, all those interactions, as the caregivers may not realize, that smiling with that baby, that folding their feet and playing with them, and neurons in the brain connections are just happening, and it's really setting up the child to do better later in life, whether it is early they get into school, being able to adapt into school even better, and even just later in life as they get into the different careers that they want to do.
That's so amazing, isn't it? It's those smiles, talking, singing is something that every parent and caregiver can do, but it has such a profound effect on that child's brain development and then later life chances. Is just amazing, isn't it? That's a phenomenal thing to think about and really within reach. And I suppose this is where I want to circle back to the responsive caregiving, because you talked about the responsive caregiving, a caregiver, so a parent, a caregiver being able to respond to the baby's cues. Now, instantly what jumps to my mind, and I hear time and time again from mums, is like, I don't know what they want, or why would I understand that? So it's an instant. I think it's very natural for parents to think like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. So what's your experience of that? And what would you say to a parent who thinks they don't or can't understand what communication, that cue that their baby's giving them?
It's really important just to know that responsive caregiving, as I'd mentioned earlier, just about being able to interact with the child, show care and responding consistently and match the need. And really, responsive caregiving is fun and easy to do, and it's something anyone can do. And usually you'll find that it's just about learning a child's cues. So being able to tell what the child needs and what they're using, and by using let me take that again. It's just being able to tell what the child needs using what the sounds they're producing, or maybe their facial expressions or their body movements. So that's how a small baby is usually going to respond. Either they're going to have cues, coos, or bubbling, or you'll find that they're crying, or just a facial expression and all that. So being able to learn that, and it takes practice. You'll come to hear that there'll be a caregiver, a parent who will be able to say, no, that cry means the diaper is wet, or that cry means that they need to feed, or that movement means they're uncomfortable, they're hot, we need to loosen up a few of the clothing. But it takes practice. So just really being able to understand the cues by looking at ways one's child either is moving their eyes, their mouth, their body. Usually crying, you'll find, is the last form of communication if a child is uncomfortable. They'll begin with either their eyes, their body movements and all. And based on that, the caregiver practices routinely. They'll be able to determine what that cue is. And definitely as the baby or child grows older, they'll even get that better, because once a child is able to communicate, then that is even easier to understand.
Amazing. I think what I really loved about that was the practice element, because I think there's almost this misconception by professionals, as well as we're kind of led to believe that when you become a parent that you will just know what to do. almost the baby's born and you will just know what to do. It's almost like expected to be this innate, inbuilt ability. And I think that causes so much pressure for parents because they then feel that they're not doing something right when they don't know. What you're saying is it's about the practice. It's about it's that relationship which you've talked about develops your understanding of your baby develops, and that practice will help you get there. And I love the phrase, a practice makes progress. Practice does not make perfection. We're not going for perfect parents. There's no such thing, or a perfect relationship with your child. It's about that progress and learning. And I guess it's the learning, isn't it? Of like, actually, no, that cry wasn't that the nappy was wet. That cry was because they're hungry. And it's about kind of tapping into those cues. And I love the way that you gave that whole range of cues as well, because there are some parents who may be neurodivergent that struggle particularly with a facial cue, but there might be another cue in terms of a cry that might be a cue, or a movement of the body. So this is the place that you're into and be able to kind of link in with your partner. That's so wonderful. And I'm wondering as well, with that, what happens to parents? What's the kind of feedback from that response of caregiving? So what benefits do you see for the parents? Because you've worked with so many mums and dads about what's the difference that it makes to a parent.
Perfect. I really like that question. So, as we've said, responsive caregiving is really, once one is able to understand, first of all, pick up the cues, understand what it means, and respond appropriately at the right time. What does that mean? It builds the bond between the caregiver and the child. And so, it begins with having a closer bond with the child, and this grows on even into toddlerhood, in early childhood, and even later in life. It helps with even understanding certain communication. Remember, responsive care does not only end at these facial cues and responding. There's responsive feeding. So at that point, there's also a point of interaction with the child. And you find that when there's responsive caregiving, even learning is easier and faster because the child is not afraid to make a mistake. For example, with responsive feeding, the child is allowed to pick up when they're at the appropriate age and they're trying to learn how to feed, they'll be able to speak for themselves. Yes, it might be messy. They might cry, getting humor in it, but also learning from different experiences. Again, telling stories when there is that reading to the child during these times. Again, it helps with language development because as the children learn to talk based on how they are spoken with. So as there is always interaction, the children are learning these words earlier. They may not be able to speak them, but they're understanding them. And with time, they're able to pick. And even a child who's learning how to speak, for example, a child maybe is only saying Papa, but after a few days, when the father person says, Papa loves you, before long, you hear the child saying, Papa loves you, because they realize, oh, these two words can be joined together. And really, it helps all around. Again, responsive caregiving provides an opportunity for play. And so at that point of play, a lot of learning happens during play. And during that time of interaction play, you find that the child is able to learn new things, whether it is academics or a skill or a life skill, a social skill, different things that the child is able to learn. But also with that, the caregiver is able to pick up in case the child has any delays because they're constantly having interaction. And when that is picked up early, and even during the well baby care visit, they're able to voice that out whenever they're within the health facility, and referrals can be done early and interventions that are put in early, and really enabling the child to have better outcomes all around. So it works both for the child and also for the caregiver.
Yeah, that's so lovely, isn't it? And that aspect of that bond. I'm just thinking what one thing came to mind, or a story came to mind of being in shopping for food, and in the market there was a baby that mum was with, and the baby was squealing. It wasn't a cry, but it was loud. It was loud, and the mum obviously knew that the baby wasn't in any discomfort. The baby just loved that sound it was making. And there were the other people in the market were very put off with the sound and looked really concerned. But the mum was responding to the baby. So when the baby was making this really high pitched sound, the mum would respond to go, I know it's busy in here today. So it was a conversation that was happening, and then the baby would And the mum would respond again. And people around it were kind of confused because it sounded like a loud, quite an uncomfortable noise. But the mum obviously knew that baby was just loving the sound, and the mum was kind of having a conversation with them. And I think it just highlights again of you as a parent or main caregiver know your baby better than anybody. And that practice to getting to know the cues. And I think you've said about that learning. So you won't always get it right, but next time it's like, oh, okay, that's what that meant. So that's what that body movement meant. That's what that sound meant. And just kind of responding to it in that way. And that's just such a beautiful, empowering thing for parents to hear about that practice. You don't have to be perfect. And it's actually so beneficial for you as a to bond and to know and understand. Yeah, your time. So I would say, my final question to you is, if I, a new parent, never done this before, what is you talked about that 80% of the brain being grown from the point of conception right through to age 2. What would you say are my 3 things that are the most important things that I do to help my baby's brain grow?
So I think 3 things, I think a few, but I'd like to summarize them. But one is just by saying responsive caregiving is fun. And it's really important because it makes the child feel safe, loved, and secure. Key important things to do: talk to the baby. And talking here, I mean talk, sing, interact with your baby. When we are doing this, eye contact, from that time of birth, ensuring there's eye contact, that helps provide the child with safety. They know, and also they feel secure whenever the caregiver is there, whether it's a mom or the dad, and looking at them straight into the eye. So talking to the child, maintaining eye contact. Simple things, playing with the baby, and playing can begin even from that baby who's newborn. We usually feel lost because they wonder how are they going to play with the baby, and they're really so tired.
Yeah.
Different ways to play with the baby. Just interact with normal and not making it complex. Really using normal things, the usual things they have within the room. A brightly colored toy that is larger to not harm the baby. Once a baby is big enough and can have tummy time, having a colored toy that the child can try and reach out to, and they interact and play together. Different things like that. So playing with the baby, ensuring that they talk and sing to the baby, reading to the baby, all that comes with now interaction. Looking at playing with the baby, I've mentioned that, and also during feeding time, really ensuring that feeding time is interactive, not just quiet. Many times you find that those specific times, it's just baby's being fed, maybe the mom is on the phone or doing other things, but just ensuring that time is actually more of an interactive time, and distractions are all cut off at that particular point. Those are the top 3 things that come to mind.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just a really good top tip there about that. It's, feeding time can often feel like a calm time and can be on your phone. But actually, you could be talking about what's going on your phone if you want to use that still to kind of almost talk out loud about what's going on with your baby.
Something I forgot to say, as we are saying talking, is not talking at the baby, talking with the baby. Speak to the baby, give that baby a chance to also respond. So if the baby is cooing back, let them cool back. So it's that back and forth interaction.
Oh, I love it. Honestly, there have been so many amazing pearls of wisdom, Dr. Cornelia. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing that with us all today.
Thank you so much, Katie, for having me also on your podcast. I wish you all the best with this. I hope I've been of help to a mom or for a dad and other caregivers out there, even by a brief discussion.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of By Your Side. If you found it helpful, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Head over to the website for free resources, expert support, and details about the By Your Side courses created to help you feel more grounded, informed, and less alone in your parenting journey. And if you're looking for a space to connect with others who really get it, you'll find all the info about our membership there too. You'll find the link in the show notes. If you're enjoying the podcast, it means the world to me if you would leave a quick review or share it with a friend. Until next time, we're right here by your side.